On a rain-glossed evening in Manhattan, where wealth shimmered behind glass walls and silence carried its own price, Charlotte Bennett sat across from her husband in Lovevoir, the kind of restaurant where power dressed itself in crystal light. Her emerald dress was simple, but her eyes held a brightness Liam Preston hadn't bothered to notice in years. She had come with news that could finally mend the quiet ache between them. But Liam's gaze never softened. He placed an envelope between the wine glasses with the precision of a man closing a deal, not speaking to a wife. "Read it," he said. His voice cut through the hum of the room. Charlotte's fingers shook as the words surfaced. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her breath stilled. "Liam, tonight of all nights." He didn't flinch. "I need a partner who fits where I'm going." "You don't." Something sharp cracked inside her. Not just hurt but clarity. She looked at him fully for the first time in months and whispered, "You're making the most catastrophic mistake of your life." What unfolded after that sentence would turn New York's power circles upside down, and leave Liam begging for a future he had already thrown away. If this beginning hits you, like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more gripping, emotional stories. The envelope on the table had been the spark, but the fire spread long after Charlotte left the restaurant. Rain spilled across Manhattan in cold sheets as she stepped outside, the city lights blurring behind her like a world dissolving. She didn't cry, not yet. Her heart felt suspended, numb, as if refusing to process what her mind already understood. The man she loved had quietly replaced her long before he handed her divorce papers. But the moment she slid into the back of the midnight black Phantom waiting at the curb, the numbness cracked. The leather welcomed her with a warmth she had forgotten. The driver didn't ask questions. He simply lifted an umbrella, bowed his head and said, "Your father is waiting, Miss Bennett." Her breath hitched. Her father. 5 years of silence, broken in a single storm-soaked night. The jet was already humming on the tarmac when she arrived at Teterboro. Inside, Arthur Bennett stood with a gravity that filled the room. His silver hair caught the dim cabin light, and when Charlotte finally collapsed into his arms, every piece of her bruised composure splintered. "I'm pregnant, Dad," she whispered, voice shaking. "He left me, and I'm pregnant." Arthur's jaw tightened in a way she had seen only once before, when a senator tried to ruin his company and found his entire political career swallowed in a matter of weeks. There was no shouting, no theatrics. Just a quiet, lethal promise forming behind his eyes. By sunrise, that promise had turned into action. Charlotte woke in her childhood bedroom, the soft hum of ocean wind outside the estate's windows. She had slept terribly, waking with a tight heaviness in her chest. Yet when she stepped into her father's study, she found him surrounded by screens, calls, contracts, and a small army of analysts, all operating with the urgency of a national emergency. Arthur didn't look up. "It's done," he said. "Today, Liam Preston learns what it feels like to disrespect a Bennett." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Something inside her loosened, a knot that had been there since the moment Liam dismissed her like old furniture. While Charlotte tried to steady herself with tea, Manhattan erupted in whispers. Preston Dynamics employees exchanged frantic calls. Analysts on Wall Street watched a sudden, inexplicable shift in the debt markets. And Liam, blissfully ignorant, woke in another woman's penthouse, believing the world finally aligned for him. He arrived at his sleek headquarters wearing triumph like an expensive cologne. But the moment he stepped onto the 40th floor, the air changed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Eyes swiveled toward him, wide with something between pity and fear. Inside his office sat men who did not belong in the world of tech, men whose suits were sharp enough to cut glass. And behind Liam's own desk lounged a stranger running his fingers across the Newton's cradle, as if calculating the precise moment each world would collide. The fall was not slow. It was decisive, absolute, engineered with the precision only old money and righteous fury could execute. By the time Arthur Bennett himself walked in, Liam was already stripped of everything except denial. The older man never raised his voice. He didn't need to. His presence hollowed the room. You took a woman who gave you everything, Arthur said quietly, and treated her like an inconvenience. Now you'll learn what it costs to mistake loyalty for weakness. Liam tried to protest, but every escape route had already been sealed shut. His accounts were frozen, his shares repossessed, his company absorbed, his name deleted from the future he thought he controlled. By noon, he was escorted out of the skyscraper with a cardboard box and a security guard who treated him the way Liam once treated interns. Charlotte didn't witness the scene in person, but when her father recounted the events that evening, she felt something she had never associated with Liam before. Distance. Her heartbreak was still raw, but the pedestal she once placed him on had turned into dust. Her life began moving in a different rhythm. Doctor visits, meetings with her father's philanthropic arm. A slow rebuilding of a woman who had spent years shrinking herself to make room for someone else's ambition. The pregnancy brought a quiet shift inside her. Each heartbeat she heard on the monitor steadied her. Each small flutter reminded her that she was no longer living for a man who never cherished her. Meanwhile, Manhattan barely remembered Liam Preston. The newspapers moved on. Investors forgot. His former colleagues avoided him on the street as if failure were contagious. He had become a name people whispered only when warning interns about arrogance. Desperation changed him. He bounced from couch to couch, friend to acquaintance, until even those doors closed. He sold his watches, then his suits, then everything except the pride that refused to admit defeat. 3 months later, when he bribed his way into the Bennett Foundation Gala wearing a stolen server uniform, he wasn't seeking revenge. He was seeking relevance, foothold, lifeline. What he found instead was the final blow. Charlotte glowed under the museum's golden lights, stronger, steadier, surrounded by people who respected her. Her dress flowed around her like midnight water, her hands resting gently on her growing stomach. When she took the stage beside her father to speak, there was no tremble in her voice. She sounded like someone who had finally stepped into her rightful place. Liam approached her afterward, his hands shaking, desperation clinging to every word. Charlie, please. Can fix this. Can be better. You can't cut me out of my child's life. Charlotte looked at him with a calm that startled him. You didn't want a child, Liam. Not with me. And I won't gamble this baby's future on your remorse. Security dragged him out as he shouted her name. Yet even in that humiliation, he still believed life owed him a comeback. But life does not negotiate with men who break the hearts of women stronger than they realized. Time marched. The city changed seasons. Charlotte gave birth to a boy with soft brown curls and her quiet determination. She named him Lucas. He became the force that guided her days, the laughter that filled rooms once plagued with silence, the anchor to a future she built without bitterness. And one crisp autumn morning in Central Park, with leaves swirling like sparks of gold, Charlotte watched Lucas chase pigeons near the pond. She breathed in the clean, bright air and felt finally at peace. Across the path, Liam, now wearing a neon vest and pushing a sanitation cart, looked up. His eyes caught the child first. He didn't know why the boy's laughter cracked something inside him, why the tilt of his head felt painfully familiar. When Lucas tripped, Liam ran without thinking. But when Charlotte arrived, pulling Lucas into her arms, the truth settled between them like frost. Thank you, mister, the boy said softly. Not father. Not any name Liam longed to hear. Just a stranger. Charlotte didn't scold. She didn't accuse. She simply stepped back, adjusting Lucas's coat with the tenderness of a woman who had chosen her own peace over revenge. Then she delivered the final, irreversible truth. Come on, sweetheart. Daddy's waiting. The word hit Liam harder than Arthur's takeover, harder than the loss of his empire, harder than every sleepless night in a basement room. He lifted his gaze and saw a man standing near the boathouse, tall, warm, steady. The kind of man whose eyes lit up when Lucas ran into his arms. And Charlotte walked toward him with the ease of someone who had found a partner worthy of her. Liam stayed frozen until his supervisor barked at him to stop staring at the rich people. Only then did he pick up the trash stick. His movements slow, mechanical, defeated. The world didn't mourn his loss. The city didn't care. He had become background noise. Charlotte didn't turn back. She didn't need to. Some stories don't end with confrontation. Some end with a door that closes quietly and never opens again. Liam had wanted power, status, a world that sparkled under artificial lights. He got the world he chased. But Charlotte, she got the world she deserved. And the consequence he earned was not prison, nor scandal, nor financial ruin. It was something far more devastating for a man like him. He lived long enough to watch another man become the father he never had the courage to be. In the months that followed, Charlotte learned that healing didn't arrive with grand gestures. It came quietly, in the soft routines she built with Lucas, in the way her father finally allowed his voice to soften around her, and in the surprising steadiness of Michael, who never tried to fill the empty spaces of her past, only offered to walk beside her through what came next. She no longer looked back to measure how far she had climbed. She looked forward, knowing the woman she had become would never again shrink for anyone. Liam faded from her thoughts, not out of cruelty, but because life had simply grown too full to hold the shadow of who he had once been. His downfall wasn't her victory, her peace was. And in that peace, she discovered a strength she never realized she carried. A strength born not from revenge but from choosing herself at last. One crisp evening, as the city glowed beneath a rising winter moon, Charlotte paused at the lakeside path. Lucas tugged her hand and pointed toward the water where the lights shimmered like scattered diamonds. For a moment, she saw her reflection beside his. Two futures intertwined, unbroken and finally free. And that is where her story truly begins. Not in the heartbreak she endured, but in the life she reclaimed. If this journey moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so we can continue bringing stories that stay with you long after they're told.